Oh yeah. What's up, y'all? What's going on? How y'all doing today? Thank you for joining thank you for joining us. And thank you especially Rondon for everything you do and all the other wonderful MSP staff and crew and volunteers and all the wonderful audience that participates on a regular basis. Y'all make this happen. So please keep it up. I've been mentioning a lot lately, and it's probably a lot of talk going on around Discord how in recent months and weeks, even more so in recent weeks, a lot of people are jumping ship as far as Steam it goes. But I'm seeing big things happening. I'm seeing that as a mistake for a lot of people. And I mean, it may not be a mistake for some people. Some people are just following their paths in life and just doing something else, and that's cool. But if your sole purpose is jumping ship because, like, oh, Steam is not really taking off and, people ain't really jumping on the platform and I ain't making money and all that, then I personally think that that's a mistake because to me, I see it as an investment. I see it as crypto. We know that the crypto market is very touchy and up and down, and doesn't matter what crypto you're dealing with. Doesn't matter how you're earning it, whether you're holding or trading. Like it's a very iffy market. I mean, all markets can the stock market in general, like any kind of business goes up and down. It's just how it goes. And if your sole focus is just making money, it's not necessarily going to work. Like the way what I've come to realize in life is you got to just do what you do. And if you're really passionate about something, and particularly when it comes to something creative, if you just follow your dreams and you just keep at it, the money tends to be a byproduct. You know what I mean? And it's rare when a very talented artist just makes it right off the top, like boom, like day one. You know what I mean? And even like a lot of the most famous, richest people, like in music and particularly in music and Hollywood, very often a lot of those artists were picked up at a young age or picked up somewhere where they were shaped and molded by producers, and a lot of times songs are written for them. And not to say that they may not be creative on their own, but let's face it, look at the liner notes on a lot of the records. Well, look at me talking about records. Google the artists and the songs that you're listening to. Very often are not written and produced or even performed in the studio by the artists, other than the vocals, of course, that you're listening to. So I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying if you're truly putting your heart and soul into something, especially something creative, it's going to take time. It may take your entire life. Look, for a long time, I've been a DJ almost my entire life. I was 8 years old when I really got interested in hip hop and started learning how to DJ, and I was a teenager when I started learning how to make beats and rap. And I wanted to be a b-boy at one time, but I didn't really keep up with it and got out of shape at a young age, so dancing really didn't become my thing. But, I've been at it my whole life trying to be in the music business, and at first it was like, yeah, I was going after that success, yeah, I want to be famous, and I'm going to make money doing this. But at some point, I don't remember what year it was. It must have been, I know it was the late 90s, probably 97 or 98 when the movie Buena Vista Social Club came out. If you haven't seen Buena Vista Social Club with Ry Cooder and all the Grammy Award-winning Cuban artists, a lot of them have passed since the movie came out, I highly urge you, especially if you're one of the creative types and you're one of these people that can relate and resonate with what I'm talking about. It is an absolutely wonderful film. And actually, when it first came out, I went on a date to go see it in the movie theater at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. And I think at the time it was like $6 to go to the theater there. I can't imagine what it costs now. But I was so touched and so moved, and it was the first time in my life a movie actually brought tears to my eyes and literally made me sob in the theater, like both sadness and joy. I had to go see it, I think it was 5 times in the theater at Brooklyn Academy of Music. I had a good job, so I could afford to go to the movie theater every day, and I went to see it like once a week for like 5 or 6 weeks straight. And like every time it brought tears to my eyes, and I bought it on DVD when it came out, and I'll tell you why. Why that kind of changed how I felt about what I was doing personally in music and in all my creative endeavors. Here you had a guy, if you don't know who Ry Cooder is, he's also a Grammy Award-winning musician, American musician, an amazing slide guitar player. His son, Joaquin Cooder, is a tremendous percussionist who's also in the film and recorded a lot of the percussion for the Buena Vista Social Club album. And he decided to go to Cuba. He'd heard about this old thing called the Buena Vista Social Club, which was just a little literally just a little social club in Havana where musicians went to play and drink and have a great time and dance and pick up chicks and whatever. And he, you know, it just kind of got like, it wasn't even all that famous, Buena Vista Social Club, on a global scale, really. But if you were, you know, if you had any idea about Cuban music and traditional Cuban music, you'd at least heard about it. It'd been like kind of a legendary thing that was talked about in the underground as far as Cuban traditional music goes, and or Latin music in general. And so he decided to go to Cuba with his son and seek out some of these musicians that had originally performed at the Buena Vista Social Club. And he found that just damn near all of them were still living in Cuba. They were all still playing music, but they hadn't been successful musicians in their lives at all. They were all, oh God, the youngest one, you got to watch the movie, and a lot of these, you know, I'm not going to give you the you know, a lot of the details might escape me right now, but so a lot of these numbers are estimated, but the youngest one was probably in his late 50s, 60s, and he's still living. And the oldest one, I think, was Ruben Gonzalez, who was a piano player who was probably close to 90 at the time they recorded the album, toured the world, played at Carnegie Hall, won a Grammy. I think they actually won a couple of Grammys, maybe a few Grammys, and recorded many more albums after that. And of course, because they were all so elderly, a lot of them has since passed. Ruben Gonzalez passed. Ibrahim Ferrer passed. Compay Segundo passed. A number of them are still living and still recording and still touring and have a very successful career now, after the age of 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. And if you watch the film, you see that, they're just as happy as somebody that's 22 years old and just got their first, $1 million record deal. And that really did change how I viewed and how I felt about my own creative endeavors. And I thought to myself, what am I, I'm doing this because I love music. And sure, I need to make money. And I've got other ways to make money if I don't make money in music, but I'm never going to leave the music alone. And throughout my life, I have made money making music. I've had periods in my life where I've made a living strictly DJing. I've had periods in my life where I couldn't get a gig for free drinks. It's just the way it goes, But that's just kind of, I think that would be my number one advice to somebody who's really like passionately pursuing some creative endeavor in their life, is go see the movie Buena Vista Social Club. It doesn't matter if you're a graffiti artist, if you want to be a clothing designer, if you want to be a tattoo artist. Go see that movie because it's gonna I feel like it's gonna really teach you that your time will come. Your time, yes. So Making Stuff, who is here because he's actually going to come on air with us in a moment, says that it's the first time he's hearing about Rod Cooter. You know what? The first time I heard of Rod Cooter was seeing the movie Buena Vista Social Club, and then I since have looked him up, and he's had a lot of albums before that, and he's had a lot of albums since then. He's produced a lot of music. He was a lot of behind the scenes. He's done a lot of behind the scenes stuff in the record industry, and he's huge. And he's also, as I said, an amazing guitar player. He does a slide guitar, which is tremendous. He plays all over the Buena Vista album, playing traditional Cuban music. And in the movie, unfortunately, I missed the live show, but in the movie, they ultimately wound up playing at Carnegie Hall, which was like all these guys' dreams, and it's a tremendous concert. And he plays with them at every show that they did touring the planet. I don't know what he's doing now with Buena Vista Social Club. As I said, some of the artists have since passed. Some are still living. I know they're still recording. The ones that are still living, for instance, Eliades de Ochoa, who actually plays a lot of music with some of the Cuban hip-hop artists. One of them is a friend of mine by the name of La Fresca, who recorded a song with him in Spain. The name of the song is going to escape me, but I have it, and I'll play it on one of my upcoming hip-hop shows, so just watch out for that. And I actually met Eliades de Ochoa in Cuba, got to see him perform a show, and crazy thing is he was wearing a Wu-Tang shirt, and I just didn't expect to see like an old school hardcore Cuban musician who barely speaks a lick of English get on stage with this big old smile, this big old classical guitar, rocking a Wu-Tang shirt, and I was like, yo, you're the man, homie. So that was cool. That was a fun show. That was actually a show I got to play at later on in the night. I got to do the after hours, so that was really fun. So real quick, before I go any further, I haven't even said I have said welcome to the show, but I haven't even told you. If you're new here, if you're listening to the recording, you are listening to Hangin with Who, right here live on MSPWaves.com. We're live via Discord. We're live via Vim, which creates the Steemit post. So please head over if you're on Steemit and give us the upvotes and the comments and all that stuff, because, you know, that also helps, along with y'all being here and showing your moral support. Somebody got to pay for this stuff. Anyway, we're live and worldwide each and every Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right immediately after Spotlight on the Artist. So I got to big up my peoples, One Media and Divine, and everybody else who's featured on the show. You guys always bring some amazing sounds. You know, it's not always my favorite genres, but it doesn't matter. Like, I sometimes will go out of my way to listen to stuff I don't normally listen to. Especially as a DJ and a producer, I like to sample stuff. So, you know, like, the samples very often, you know, you're not going to sit here and make hip-hop records sampling hip-hop records necessarily. You need all kinds of different sounds. So I really appreciate that. Of course, I'm not sampling your music, unless you let me. But I will play it on my podcast. You know, this isn't the only show I do, y'all. I'm back to my almost back to my full-time podcast and blogging schedule. I've been, this week was the official return of Viscosity D&B over on Steam Music Association. So that's Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. in the SMA server. I'll ask Zig if he could do a favor and drop the link for the SMA server, please. Some really cool stuff. I'm going to go over some kind of housekeeping stuff. Since I'm on the subject of SMA and what happens over here on Discord and all the wonderful podcasts all over Discord, I took some advice from the good people over at Canna Curate. Big up my man Frackus and John and everybody over there, Blunt Smasher, over in Greenhouse Radio Online. And I invited the Discord part of you, if you're not watching the video, when I take a little pause, it's to inhale some cannabis. But they've been using the Discord tip bot, which allows all the users in the Discord channels the Discord servers to tip all the, you know, anybody in the server essentially, and particularly the hosts and the crew and the staff of the different servers. So I did invite that over to SMA so we can start playing around with that and see if we can all help each other out a little bit. Because all the wonderful people over at Greenhouse Radio have definitely been doing that, and I thank you for your wonderful tips. Every little bit counts for sure. So as I said, we're here each and every Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll be on SMA once again each and every Tuesday, 7 p.m. I think I may be back on Wednesdays as well. That was the original schedule, was Tuesday, Wednesdays, and then Fridays over on MSP. I leave Thursdays open because I right now have to give a huge shout out to everybody over in the server formerly known as Steemit Ramble, now known as The Ramble. If you're not familiar, definitely check that out. I will get an invite if I can while I'm talking to you. What I love about The Ramble is not only that it's a really, really cool channel to be active in, but every Thursday, the wonderful host known as Shadows Pub has a show called PYPT, Pimp Your Post Thursdays, and basically anybody can come into the show and present and pimp one of yours or somebody else's posts. Actually, you're allowed to do more than one, but you have to go back and get in the queue if you want to go a second or third time or whatever, if there's time for it. And there usually is, although I've seen a pretty big audience, sometimes there isn't, but we do a lot of after hours. That happens at 11 a.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Eastern over in the Ramble. So if you got a post that's under the 7 or 6 day payout period and you want to get some love, whether it's yours or somebody else's, definitely come over on Thursdays. I'm there. I know I've seen Frackus up in there. It's a great way to get some followers, some upvotes, a lot of love and support, and make some friends and stay active in the Discord channels. And it's really cool. So I've already shouted out the great people over at Canna Curate, all things cannabis lovers, connoisseurs all across the globe coming together to spread and share and bounce all information off each other. And I've seen some beautiful plants in there. Everybody shares their grows and their different extracts and things, and a lot of wonderful advice as far as how to use cannabis in all kinds of different ways. Is, you know, we now know that it's not just something you can smoke and get high and have a good time. It's quite literally a medicine that'll take care of damn near anything that's wrong with you. I personally, I really actually don't smoke it as often as I used to. My old lungs just can't handle this all that much, so I like to make edibles. And when I make edibles, I first have to make an oil. So I actually switched years ago from using butter to using coconut oil for a number of reasons. Besides the fact that it's healthier, also from doing research, I found that coconut oil extracts more of the THC from the plant. So there's a lot less waste and you get a much higher potency of extract there. And with a jar of cannabis coconut oil, not only can you cook, you can actually eat it straight up, which you can do with the butter as well, but you can use it externally for all kinds of things. You could use it as a lotion, you could use it for pain, you could use it for burns, cuts, blemishes, all kinds of things, dry skin, your feet, fungal infections, especially if you mix it with tea tree oil, even better. Which I don't know why I keep forgetting to do that. Probably because I usually wind up eating it and I don't want to eat tea tree oil. But yeah, so anyway, I'm not going to go too much further into that because that's what Can of Curate is for. So let me grab a link for them for y'all as well. Let me make sure it's non-expiring. Bing. Back to Peace, Abundance, and Liberty. And there you go. That's Can of Curate. Again, you don't have to be a pothead. It's for all things cannabis. And I do a monthly music show in Can of Curate, which I did say I was going to try to do weekly. It's just been a little hard to add another weekly thing to the schedule. Right now it's the last Sunday of every month, 7 p.m. Eastern time. It's called Blessed Sessions. It's blessed, not blessed. Blessed Sessions is a log running serial podcast I started doing. Is actually the very first podcast I started doing back in 1998. It was all hip hop show at the time. We did a lot of live freestyles and we had a lot of famous MCs from all over the New York area. And I've been keeping that going over the years, and now I do it on Can of Curate, and it's still very hip hop based. But I spread out and do more just heady music, trip hop, down tempo, acid jazz, dub, ambient type stuff. Sometimes I'll drop a little jungle drum and bass if it's kind of on the jazzy side, or trippy kind of stuff. Music for the head. So anyway, I'll make a little bit more housekeeping before I bring my wonderful guest on the air. I want to make a couple announcements. I got a lot of big things going on. First of all, if you've been following along long enough, I don't think that's lit. If you've been following along long enough, you've been hearing a lot about the solar tiny sound and hip hop is dead. And I love when I use the hashtag hip hop is dead all over social media and people are like, hip hop is not dead. I'm like, you just don't get it yet. I know hip hop is not dead, but see, hip hop is dead, and all that means to me, and this is how it all. I've explained this to y'all. You probably feel like I'm repeating things, but new people listen to this all the time, so I gotta kind of reiterate things every now and then. Hip Hop is Dead is my new live music project, which is essentially supposed to be a Grateful Dead cover band, which does not cover Dead songs. Instead, what we do is use all of our musical influences and cultural influences to create live hip hop and EDM. And so one of the primary influences is the Grateful Dead, and not just musically. I said this before, Grateful Dead, and people usually agree that Grateful Dead isn't just about the music. It's a lifestyle, it's a culture, it's a way of life, it's a lot of different things. It encompasses a lot of different things, particularly psychedelic culture and psychedelics as medicine and such. And so that's something that I'm a huge believer in and a huge proponent of. And so to me, making the marriage between hip-hop, EDM, being a raver all my life, and a deadhead, it just seemed to make sense. And when I had explained that to the musicians that I hooked up with recently, and a lot of people who kind of were within earshot, and I kind of told the story about what Hip Hop is Dead was supposed to be, and everybody absolutely loved it. And so we've been running with it. And so what we've been doing is we've been touring, and we're getting some gigs and stuff, and some real actual gigs, like on stage with other artists. But on our own, we created what's called the Solar Tiny Sound. And this is going to be a great segue into my guest here. What the Solar Tiny Sound is, essentially, it's a little portable, fully solar powered off-grid PA system designed for DJing and playing live music, So it's essentially a live music PA, not something that's gonna play, a huge festival for 1,000 people, but small gatherings in parks, on the beach, backyards, and in somebody's basement. Um, we did a lot of research. We spent years doing research. My wife and I, we've been working on going off grid and going solar in our lives, and being a DJ and making electronic music, I'm thinking, man, I really do need electricity. Not that I need it to live and survive, but I need it to do the things that I do. So, I figured, I'm thinking to myself, how are we going to do this in a way that we could be on the road and be playing music and doing all this stuff? And so what it came down to is Making Stuff had suggested for our tiny home Renogy solar panels, which is an American-made company. They're very inexpensive, have extremely high-quality products, and so that's what we had initially gotten for our solar home. For our tiny home. Well, yeah, whatever, solar home too. You know what I mean? But I looked at Renogy and I saw that they had a small briefcase-sized portable solar generator, which looked like, after I did a lot of research and called them and spoke to them and talked to Greg about it at some point, I realized that this is probably going to work for what I needed to do. I needed to power a laptop. I needed that laptop to power a couple of external components through bus power. I needed to be able to keep the Bluetooth a good Bluetooth speaker powered long enough to play music for, depending on the kind of show, anywhere from an hour to several hours. And I didn't need it to be for humongous crowd. I wanted to be able to play like on a street corner, like a guitar player could do, in the subways in New York, as I said, backyards, whatever. So, along with the Renogy solar generator, we wound up getting a Mackie portable PA system, which is also battery powered. Well, as an option to be battery powered, which we obviously went with that option. So the Solar Tiny Sound consists of those two main components: the Mackie PA speaker, the Renogy solar generator, the laptop, which runs Serato DJ and can run any number of music production software and DJing softwares. It could be Tractor. It really doesn't matter. I prefer Serato because the controller that I have with it is a Pioneer controller, which comes with Serato DJ Pro, and it all works very well together. So the other side to that is the Solar Tiny Sound that I've been describing to you is actually up for raffle. So the whole thing that Hip Hop is Dead is doing is not just touring and playing music and doing it a great deal for the love, but we are showcasing the Solar Tiny Sound every time we play out with it. And what basically we're doing is we're selling raffle tickets for the Solar Tiny Sound in order to raise funds to keep doing what we're doing, to build another Solar Tiny Sound system, because we're going to need another one to replace the one that we give away once the raffle is over. It's over on July 21st, because what we're going to do is we're going to show up with the Solar Tiny Sound and showcase it at Hydrotechnics Festival at Echo Lake in New York for the entire weekend at the New York City Ravers camp. At the end of that festival, which is a Sunday, July 21st, we will have we will draw a winner. It's all going to happen electronically through a website called Acel Events. It was the only website that I could find that would actually let anybody do a raffle that's not a 501c3 nonprofit for charity and such. Patreon would not let us do a raffle. I was suspended for a couple of weeks until I changed those tiers. And there were, as I said, there were a couple other websites that were specifically for raffles, but only for nonprofits, charities, and such. So this website is Acel Events. For $99, anybody can run a raffle worldwide. They don't really care what you're raffling as long as it's legal. And they do take, above and beyond the $99, they take $1 per ticket sold. And that's perfectly fair, especially considering that it's the only website I could find where we could actually do that. So that is up and running. Now, you're not just going to get a raffle ticket. I understand how people are going to be hesitant when I tell you how much a raffle ticket costs, and they're going to be like, "What? It's a lot for a raffle ticket." Well, technically, it's not, considering what you might win. However, here's the catch. Check this out, y'all. If you're watching the video, I talked about this before. I've been talking about doing this for a long time. Finally made it manifest. This is a Hip Hop is Dead logo, silk screened, on a fully sustainable t-shirt made from recycled plastic bottles that did not wind up in the ocean, quite literally killing our entire world. So we've got a whole bunch of these printed up in different sizes. I like black and red. The other colors, we have a Rebel Blue, and we have what's called a Vino Red. They're very fancy looking shirts. They're very, very durable. They feel really comfortable. The other ones have the logo silkscreen on it in cream color. I've actually got pictures all over social media now. We've got different sizes. We've got men's and women's cuts. We've got for men's medium, large, and extra large. For women, we've got small, medium, and large, and then we have youth sizes, and we've got all the sizes in all three of the colors. So there's something there for everybody. So what we're doing is the base price here for the raffle is $25 for a t-shirt plus a raffle ticket. That's where it starts. After that, it's going to be $50 for 10 raffle tickets and a t-shirt. Now, I've explained this last time, and I'm not going to get too much into it because I'm a little bit limited on time because I got some, I got a guest and I got some little special treat for you all lined up in a little bit. But there's two more tiers. The next one is a $100 tier, which is geared more towards business owners and people who are in need of some kind of advertising, because what you're going to get with that is a t-shirt, 10 raffle tickets, and also a graphic ad that's going to run during all of our podcasts and live streams and all over all of our social media and our website. And in case I failed to mention, which I think I did, the website is movement19.org. .org. A lot of people put in .com, and I actually used to own both because I knew people would make that mistake. I just couldn't afford it this time, so forgive me. As soon as I can, I will get the .com, and it will all go to the same place. I had to renew everything, and we're on a tight budget right now. We got a lot of stuff going on, and the Solar Tiny Sound was not a cheap thing to put together, and we got some car trouble right now, so I'm doing what I can, doing the best as I can. So anyway, the $100 tier, as I said, you're going to get a graphic ad designed professionally that's going to run all over the place for 1 year. Then the next tier is a $500 tier, which we're only selling 3 of those, because what we're going to do with the $500 tier is we're going to give away, I think it's 10 t-shirts, I think it's 25 raffle tickets, and then what you're going to get is actually, for people who own a business, is we're going to organize an event with Hip Hop is Dead and the Solar Tiny Sound and other supporting artists and acts at your place of business on probably on a weekend, where we're going to draw a lot of attention to your business. We're going to have a big event, big party. We're gonna bring a sustainable food truck. We're gonna cater the event. We're going to professionally film the event, and then we're going to edit 2 things. We're gonna edit a commercial that can be used in a number of different ways. It can be played, with the audio and the visual part together. It can be played just audio. So if you want to play it on radios or audio only podcasts. It can also be played just visually, like on a screen somewhere, if you want to just have it like kind of like a slideshow kind of thing. That commercial will be produced professionally, and it will be yours to keep to use as you wish indefinitely. But it will also run on all of our podcasts and live streams and social media for 1 year. So pretty good deal. At first I was kind of like hesitant, like who the hell's going to pay $500? But honestly, like I used to do this for a living, and I know how much people pay for that kind of stuff. And, to have that done, to just come out of pocket and just pay somebody to do it, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. It could be anywhere from like $2,000 to like $10,000 to have something like that. And we're gonna do it, from soup to nuts for the $500, and you still have a very good chance of winning the Solar Tiny Sound, because you're gonna get 25 raffle tickets and 10 of these really awesome sustainable T-shirts. If you're watching the video, I'm gonna show it off one more time. Get my necklaces out the way, and here's the thing. This is a piece of art, y'all. This right here was created by a local artist by the name of Deuce, a very good friend of mine. He's a lifelong graffiti artist. He's my age. He is so wickedly talented. He's getting up all over the city of Asheville. Not only graffiti, but he's doing a lot of signs and murals and different businesses, because he's multi-talented. He doesn't just do graffiti. And so he created this logo. There's a couple little tiny details I'm not 100% happy with, but we had to get the shirt out. I do absolutely love what he did. It's exactly what I had described and envisioned. Just, a couple things, we're going to make some changes for the next version. It says Hip Hop is Dead, and what I had told him and what I believe he has created here is that I wanted to see something that was kind of like the Grateful Dead logo and like an African Zulu mask all in one, but I wanted it to look like some 90s like crazy wild style graffiti, but of course something legible, and I believe he managed to make that happen. Again, a couple little minor changes I want for the next version, but this is basically it. we were happy enough to go ahead and print some shirts and sell them to you. So, anyway, I think that's enough out of me. Greg, if you're ready, I'm going to drag and drop your ass. Are you there, homie?
Hey, how's it going, brother?
Alrighty, it's going wonderful, and I can hear you just fine. And I just want to make sure in the audience, if somebody can type away and let me know that they can hear you as well before we go too much further. So, if Rondon or Krim or somebody real quick can let me know, or Major Tom there, buddy, my engineer. Beautiful. Krim says we're good. So, welcome to the show once again, my man Greg, aka Making Stuff. So good to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me on, brother.
Yeah, you're always welcome, buddy. You know that. So I've asked you to come on a lot recently because you're in some ways responsible for some of the things I've learned recently and been able to put together this solar tiny sound. So I really appreciate that. You helped us a great deal when I was having a lot of trouble with installing a wood stove in our tiny home. So I definitely appreciate everything you do. And real quick, man, I want to jump into before we even talk much about solar and whatnot. You got a lot of stuff going on, and you've got some solar projects, and you were telling me about this kind of self-teaching endeavor that you've got going on, and it's really, really interesting. So I'd love for you to go ahead and jump in and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've been following along with me on Steemit, my account's Making Stuff, but there on Steemit, I've been developing what I call the survival trailer project, but it's basically a trailer that was an idea that it could be like a mobile microgrid in case of to run a small community or be there for emergencies to cover all your bases with food, water, shelter, and energy production.
Right.
And then a way to communicate. And so, kind of born from that idea, I've been constantly trying to evolve. How can I teach people, how to build something like this, or get people to understand more about the technologies and everything. And I'm kind of recently watched a little thing with Tony Robbins talking about how online self-education through these courses, people are gonna start jumping on board on that, and it really falls in line with a lot of that I do. And then I also have invested in a lot of these self-teaching courses in all kinds of stuff for doing aircrete and being able to do off-grid solar and a lot of this stuff to teach myself. Like I had a mentor doing some of the solar stuff that got me started, and then just teaching myself as I go pretty much. It's not my field, but being trained as an engineer is a background that I have. I just kind of know how to put some stuff together. So and that's why I kind of have I built a website called the Tinker Tribe, and that's pretty much what I do, man. It's just like tinker with things and try to invent some things that can maybe make the world a better place. And I like to feature people that are doing that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, I can vouch for a lot of what you're saying here as far as, you're very big into DIY, and having followed your blog and what you do on social media, on the internet. You're very well versed in many areas of DIY culture, and hence the name Making Stuff. And, that's... I think I was following you for a while before I even realized that, like, you were a fellow Steemian, and I could just reach out and be like, "Yo, what's up, dude?" So it's great.
Yeah.
It's great to be able to do that, and I like how you included, with this project, that one of the aspects of it was being able to communicate, because I think that's one of the things that the internet is so useful and so important for nowadays. People in third world countries are even able to have internet very often, and have access to a lot of things that you couldn't even 10 years ago. So I do, to me, the internet and a lot of the resources on the internet are really at the status of a utility, a global utility at this point. And so many people I know that really keep in touch with their real life friends and family through platforms like Facebook and even on Discord now. So I think that that's important, that and really good that you've included that as one of the aspects of the project that you're working on.
Yeah, I think just being able to have any kind of capability in and the thing in mind that I'm thinking about when I'm building this thing is for like total shit hits the fan kind of scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and not only that, to kind of be a thing for a mobile microgrid for a community pretty much. So kind of an idea that I've had is to not only host physical workshops but also have the online teaching workshops, and then do modules on the step-by-step process on how to build something like this. And you don't necessarily have to build the same thing I built. You could even improve upon it and make it better, or
Yeah.
you can go bare bones as possible depending on how your budget fits you. But yeah, I wanted to create something that you'd still be able to communicate with others with ham radio or however you wanted to communicate. But the way that I'm setting it up is through ham radio, because there's a bunch of old ham radio operators that are around the world that still keep that system going.
Yeah.
So if everything else goes down, probably still have ham.
For
So
a lot of people who maybe new to technology and not so savvy and maybe not be familiar with what ham radio is. I know I was a Boy Scout and had a lot of friends, a lot of nerdy friends that were into ham radio. But tell us a little bit briefly, what is ham radio?
it's just amateur radio, and you broadcast over the different radio frequencies that exist. And for people that want to get started in it, it's pretty much becoming either transmitting your own signal, transmitting and receiving a signal and putting it out and being able to pick it up with an antenna. So it's just radio like we all use, or how radio first started essentially. And if you have a powerful enough transmitter, you can send that signal, be able to send that signal to far distances, and
Yeah.
then people can pick it up. And if you want to do that, you gotta you apply for an operator's license, so you're not they monitor the signals and stuff like that. Um so you have to kind of be a little cognizant of that. But I've talked to guys and they say you can mess around with it as long as you're not as long as you're using the right call signs and stuff like that, it just to play around with it. But you can do a note. You can do different types of licenses for it. If you're just getting started and you don't want to be a full operator, you can do something called a no code license.
Yeah.
And but the full operators know Morse code and stuff, so they're able to yeah, kind of create a network if everything else goes down, essentially.
Right. Now, ham stands for high amplitude modulation, correct?
Uh, Good question. I'm not totally sure on that. I just think it's all I know is it's just amateur radio is all I know.
I think that's what it stands for. If somebody can Google it and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, since you brought up the topic of radio, I mean, it's something I've had a lot of experience in. As I said before the internet, like I had some experience with pirate radio, and I did college radio a little bit on the FM dial, and even when I was a little kid, I had this little kind of cheap makeshift AM transmitter that reached like a couple of blocks, and my friends and I would mess around with it. And I wonder. I mean, I've seen pirates. There's still pirate radio still exists in certain places. It's few and far between nowadays. But like in England, it used to be huge. Like all matter of fact, being a huge junglist, a DJ who plays drum and bass for so long, in the early days of rave and drum and bass and jungle music, all the big radio stations in England that are now major FM stations at one time actually started as pirate stations. And there's I know there's a couple still floating around. I wonder if at some point, because I think most people nowadays are using the internet for music and listening to things like talk radio, and like almost everybody, the word podcast has become a household term around the globe at this point. And so even though a lot of these major radio stations are still on the FM dial, they are, most of them, or probably all of them, are also on the internet, and also very often producing podcasts in addition to the live radio shows that they have on the FM dial. So I wonder if, like, at some point, people will kind of be able to take over the airwaves and be able to sort of get around what's happening on the internet, a lot of the censorship and purging that's going on. And for instance, like the decentralized web, I think has been a good answer to that for a lot of us, and probably will get even better and continue to be. But I wonder if, like, at some point there may be like a return to that, renegade pirate radio thing, where we're going to be out there, in vans and abandoned buildings, broadcasting across the FM dial.
Yeah, there's I think now we have a lot of tools. Like the common man has a lot of tools at their disposal through open source technology, through open source software, and it's never been easier for somebody to kind of pick up and start having a voice like we're doing right now
Yeah.
with these podcasts and things. So there's that technology, and then there's also cool stuff that like when the hurricanes wiped out a lot of Puerto Rico, there was a cell phone mesh network that popped up, and people using the cell towers, they bought this little device that were able to set up a internet network, mesh network through the cell towers. And so things like that exist. And then, yeah, man, there's all kinds of technology at our disposal now. In one sense, we've never had it better at
Right.
communicating with each other, but in another sense, it also, the technology, I think, has given a big divide in each other, in
Yeah.
all of us, because just getting wrapped up in it too much.
Well, it's also still very much in its infancy. In the grand scheme of things, human beings are still in our infancy. we're still doing a great deal of learning, growing, and maturing, and we've made a shit ton of mistakes that we've had better correct quite quickly. But do you remember? Do you remember the show? Or have you ever watched, or has anybody watched Max Headroom? It was a show, a really cool sci-fi show in the '80s.
Nah,
Oh
nah.
man, if you're not familiar with Max Headroom, it's actually short for maximum headroom, which you see on signs, like showing like how high a vehicle can be to go under an overpass or a toll booth.
Yeah.
So the show, without giving too much away, if you haven't seen it, in the beginning is this newscaster. It's like kind of it was made in the '80s, so it's kind of noir and weird and a little bit low budget. But it was supposed to be some, I guess, taking place a little bit into the future, like probably nowadays. And the government would basically ran the television and all propaganda and whatnot. And so there were pirate television stations. There were people broadcasting all subversive stuff and punk rock music and whatnot. And so this one newscaster had gotten wind of a major network that was broadcasting these like subliminal messages that were making people like spontaneously combust. And he was about to expose this, so they killed him. But before they killed him, he managed to transfer himself into like the network, and he became Max Headroom. It's a really really cool show, actually. I tried watching it again, and it's definitely like low budget and very very '80s, but
Yeah.
the storyline is pretty sick, and very much kind of, it's almost prophetic. Like it's a little bit more extreme than what is going on in the world today, but not far off.
Yeah, yeah, man. I like that. I like that old '80s, that retro '80s stuff. Krim turned me on to some movie called Turbo Kid,
Oh
which
yeah.
is like throwback '80s, like Mad Max kind of thing. That
Yep.
was really cool.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah, I like all that kind of stuff.
you know what? You'll probably now, if somebody Google's it who isn't familiar with it, you may recognize it because they used Max Headroom for a lot of Pepsi commercials throughout the late '80s and early '90s. So you may have actually seen it and not realized who it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that out, man. It sounds pretty rad.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I I just watched a video by Luke Radowski right before coming on air,
We
and
are change.
yeah, and he was talking to David Icke. They were premiering his movie in L.A. and they shut down his premiere right before they were able to get there. They already had like a bunch of people that were supposed to go there, and the venue shut them down like 2 hours before they were supposed to go,
Wow.
and they couldn't get another venue, and so they made a bunch of people angry. But what he was talking about was like, we are in times where people they want to silence any opposing knowledge, or even like basically the way he described it was that, well, we heard that David Icke was bad, so all his listeners must be bad. So I don't care if we offend any of those people. So we're just gonna shut him down. So
Yeah, well, that's what's happening all over the place. I don't know if you've kept up with mainstream social media, but just recently, well, we know that months ago they started to purge a lot of groups from Facebook and Twitter and all, and even YouTube and Patreon started doing a little bit of censoring of things like Infowars and all these like subversive radical outlets like what's the one, Free Thought Project and Cop Block and Police to Police and whatnot. And now just this week, Facebook started going after everybody's personal pages and actually banned Alex Jones and Farrakhan. I don't know how he got thrown in the mix. And the other guy, Milo, whose last name, weird Greek last name I don't want to mispronounce, who I don't even like, but I absolutely recognize his right to go online and say whatever the hell it is he wants to say. Other than the classic example of yelling fire in a crowded theater where there is no fire. you know, what I mean?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We have to have free speech. We have to have a discourse between each other. Otherwise, you do get people that don't feel like they're ever being heard, and they lash out. And so I like watching Mark Passio, and one of the things that he says is, you play silly games, you're gonna win silly prizes.
yeah. I love
And
Mark Passio.
that's yeah, he's the man, dude.
Yeah,
And so
he's on Steam it too, actually. Very recent.
yeah,
Very
and
recent.
I like what you said at the beginning of the show, is that if you're jumping ship on this thing, you don't really see you're not seeing the forest for the trees. I
Yeah.
mean, this thing, what we're doing is actually, it's a fight to keep voices alive, really, and opposing voices to mainstream opinion. And so, if this be the first step in the evolution of this decentralized internet, it's a good tool. And so, it could either be a great tool, or just another place you can post cat pictures, I guess.
Well, you can do that too. I,
Yeah, you can do both.
I sent Ned Scott a friend request on Facebook today.
Oh yeah, did he accept?
I don't know. I don't like to check while I'm on the air because I don't like to clog up my bandwidth. You know how that goes.
But what, man, probably what happened to Steam It Inc. Through this whole thing is actually like probably one of the best things that ever happened here, because
Yeah.
it brought so many people together
Yeah.
that are building things that are like, truly kind of a use case for the free market,
Mm-hmm.
and people coming up with solutions and truly decentralizing this thing. So I hope that it continues. We can, I feel like there's a really core group of people that get it and are doing that, are
Yeah.
trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you. I just lost my train of thought. I apologize where I was going with
but
that. But
but truth is powerful, and it resonates with people, and that's why everything's getting shut down, because when you're hitting on truth, then it's a powerful thing, and people start really waking up. And so even taking the hints of things, uh it's like the red pill it is the red pill to wake you up from the matrix.
yeah, and again, I mean, it's in its infancy, and listen, to me, like, yeah, in the very beginning, I'll admit, I saw when I got turned on to Steam It, I saw people's wallets, and I was like, and I saw the payouts, and I was like, oh man, I can do the same thing I do over on Facebook without getting into fights with people every day, without getting a headache, and actually make money. And the make money part, like I realized, like, you know what, that to me it's almost like something I can count on in the future. Like if I sit there and I ignore the Steam and just kind of like accrue SP, I feel like even if Steam never moons and it's never worth thousands of dollars, I think it's inevitable that it's gonna go up in dollar value at some point, and I think we're all gonna turn around and look at our wallets one day and go, "Holy shit!
Well,
I can make a car payment or get that roof fixed or whatever the hell it is." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's the guys that are one of the really great guys I got to talk with was Starkers and Anarchotech a while back of Oracle D, and when
oh
he
yeah,
talked about using your delegations to support projects. I mean, think about that. You're like investing in other people's ideas, but you're not really taking much risk because
none
you're
at all.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and you're getting something
You
out of
take
it.
no risk.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
when you're upvoting, people forget you're getting a cut too.
Right. And so think about how powerful that is. I mean,
Yeah,
once that mentality gets, once you can wrap your head around that mentality, you understand that steam power can really help build great things.
yeah, yeah. But more
So
more so the community and the way it's brought, as you said, it's brought some of us together and um, you know I welcome newcomers all the time. I've onboarded somebody recently who I've introduced to Pal, who I know is going to be doing great things, and his blog is already doing like 5 times what mine did in the first few weeks, and I'm happy for him. I mean, he's helped me out a great deal, and so
yeah,
introducing him to Steam, he was already a blogger. He'd never heard of anything decentralized and based on a blockchain before, and I mean he knew what Bitcoin was and all that, but it's been a blessing for him. He loves it, and it doesn't worry him that his initial payouts are like in the 3 decimal places.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you get a voice in there's been a lot of talk about retaining people here in the on Steam and all that, and there's another business opportunity is creating educational content on how
Yeah,
this cryptocurrency works.
right.
Being able to get people involved with communities, give them the kind of the inside scoop of how everything runs, and kind of like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Steamiverse kind of thing.
Yeah, Pence has been doing great work in that respect on Thursdays over here on MSP. I know you've been following along, but for the listeners, Thursdays, I think it's 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'm not going to do the math right now, but you can check the schedules, everybody, over on mspwaves.com, or keep up with us over here in the Peace, Abundance, and Liberty Discord for all the announcements and the right schedules. But yeah, Pensive is one of our fellow podcasters here on MSP who's been doing awesome things, and every Thursday recently he's been doing things like the State of Steam, and he's been having some big time developers and people creating dApps and all kinds of business mergers and partnerships and opportunities all over the Steam blockchain and otherwise. And I think it's absolutely amazing what they're doing, and I think it shows a lot of promise for the future.
Yeah, Pensive is he's really good at being able to bridge people together and
Yeah,
then, be able to network people with the right other people and pull all these projects and ideas and kind of, I think he sees the forest, and
yeah, no
he's
question.
really good. He's really good at, getting the right people together. It's cool.
Yep, yep. All right. Well, let me take a quick look at the time because I have something I want to have a little special treat for everybody. So you and I probably need to wrap things up. If you've got anything you want to get off your mind real quick, the floor is yours, buddy.
No, I just want to tell everybody, and this is something that I repeat on my show, is that we have the solutions and they're around us, but we have to really focus on that and make that your focus instead of a lot of the division and these other things going on in life. And so the mantra that I say is, I will be an inextinguishable light of possibilities for myself and others. And so that's just
Indeed.
what I want to leave to everybody.
Indeed. Good advice. That's great, man. It's implementation. It's high time we implement. We've done it. I've been saying it, and I know you've heard me say it. We've done enough talking. We've done enough bitching and moaning and complaining and fighting and arguing and debating and discussing, and it's time to put your money where your mouth is. Let's do.
Yeah, let's do, man, and get off the teat of the current system and start showing other people what's possible for sure.
Yeah, some people might say shit or get off the pot. Yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Greg, aka Making Stuff over on Steam It. Give us the website again.
Yeah, just steamit.com / at making stuff is
No,
how
but
you can
then you
find me.
have your own website as well. You've been building. Is
Yes,
that
yes,
launched?
yes. It's live, but it's I'll probably be working on it.
Okay,
So
so okay.
it's but you can find that, and when it launches again, it'll be www.thetinkertribe.com.
All right, cool. We'll keep that under wraps for now until you're ready and nice and proud and ready to show it off.
All right,
All right, I'm gonna move you back to the audience. Thanks again, bud.
all right. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Oh, here comes the train, right on time. Look at that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have come to the end of the first hour, and I'm going to take a little break because I have a little special treat for some of y'all. If you have not checked it out on my blog or on YouTube, I've got to talk over this train behind me. I can't close the windows because it gets too freaking hot in here. And speaking of graffiti, it's actually pretty cool that we got these tracks right next to the building because we see some pretty awesome pieces every time it goes by. I'm gonna just kind of wait a second. It's not usually a very long train. There we go. There we go. All right, there we go. Choo choo. Anyway, so as I said, I got a special treat. So I'm gonna step away for about the next 40 minutes, and I'm going to run a little exclusive one-on-one podcast that I did with my buddy John Vibes. If you're not familiar, although I think looking at the audience here, most of you are familiar. He's been on MSP with us a number of times. He will be again in the near future. He's got a book launching this spring, Paper Squares and Purple Stars. And I need not say a whole lot because I'm gonna play this video I did while when we stopped at his house overnight on our way to do a show in New York last week with Hip Hop Is Dead. We'll actually be playing Hip Hop Is Dead. We'll be playing. This is not something you'll hear on the show, on the podcast I'm about to play for you, but Hip Hop Is Dead will be playing a couple of extended sets in the outdoor smoking section at his book release party on June 29th in Baltimore, Maryland. Super, super, super excited to do that. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait till the book comes out. I've actually read most of it. I've seen it already. And the artwork is absolutely beautiful. He did officially announce that an app is being released pretty soon. I forget the date, but it's coming out before the book. It's going to be kind of a role-playing game that goes along with the book. You're going to get the app for free with the first chapter before the book comes out. Then the book is going to come out, and then they're going to release chapters of the book with the app. The app is being developed by the individual or the company who did the artwork for the cover. It's absolutely beautiful. Some of you have seen it already. If not, maybe while in the next 40 minutes, I'll come over into the chat and chop it up with y'all and share some pics and things. So stand by for just a moment, and I'm going to see if this works. I've never done this before over in OBS, y'all. Check 1 2. All right, can it curate? Let me know if you got us before we get the ball rolling here. Check 1 2. All right, can it curate? Let me know if you got us before we get the ball rolling here. Grim or John or somebody real quick, just let me know that we're good to go. I see the bot working. Okay, Grim says we got you. All right, and I'm gonna just check the frame one more time before I kick back and light this blunt. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Hold up. Lighter failure.
How's everybody doing today on this lovely day?
This is the first time I got to do an intro, doing a vlog here, a podcast, video podcast, and actually light a blunt right at the top of the show. So I'm gonna take my time with this real quick.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm John Vibes, and we're chilling here in my backyard right now today.
Oh, is that where we are?
Yeah.
I was gonna say an undisclosed location.
Yeah, we're in an undisclosed...
within the 48 contiguous states.
A windowless bunker we're broadcasting.
They know we're lying. They're gonna know we're lying. What's up, everybody? Welcome. I'm gonna call this like a special edition of Hangin' with Who. A very special edition. That's what I'm gonna call it. A very special edition. We are live in person, and I still don't think I have this blunt lit with the one and only John Vibes, who is no stranger to Hanging with Who, although we have not done it like this before.
Yeah, not live. Not live.
Well, live, but not together.
Yeah, exactly. More Skype and shit like that, and Discord, but never actually in the flesh. Although we've hung out plenty of times, we've partied many a times, we've never actually recorded a podcast in person.
Yeah, we've definitely shared substances and good times in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I first and foremost, before we get going too much further, I want to welcome you all to Grow Greenhouse Radio Online, and the good peoples of Canna Curate. Got to give a big up to Grim, my man John over here. Thanks for having us today on such short notice. I got a shout out. I got to shout out MSP and Pences over there. I'm not even going to try to get their attention because they're doing their thing. It's Thursday afternoon, and normally I'd be over there with them. But we got to bang this out. We've been talking about doing this for a while, and we got quite a few things to talk about today in the little bit of time we have as the sun sets behind us. So I think that's lit.
It should be. If not, I'll take care of it.
I may have rolled it a little too tight. Curious, before we get going, do you know what the strain is that we're smoking on?
Mimosa is that one.
Mimosa. One I'm not familiar with. I wonder how many people over here in the Grow audience have John. John is a pretty big connoisseur here.
See, they got this thing at the Starbuds by me. Starbuds is the place I go to. I mean, I generally like to support the black market.
Right.
But when I do the dispensary thing, I go to this place Starbuds on Sundays, and they have this deal where in Maryland it's a good deal where it's $200 an ounce for what they call shake, but it's decent buds.
Oh sure, yeah.
It's like the bottom of their barrel or whatever.
It's their trim and shit.
And
right?
Out west it's probably a lot cheaper, but it's a decent deal. But they only have 10 or 12 strains for you to choose from. So
it's tasty and nice and green.
This is my first time checking this particular strain out.
Well, this is not necessarily a cannabis show, so we're gonna move forward and while we talk on some of this cannabis and talk to y'all good people over here at Grow. So what brings us this way? Boy, I've got so much to go over. We've got this. I've been talking about the solar tiny sound. And hip hop is dead for a number of weeks now, and we got a lot of things jumping off now. You all should definitely take some time during and after the show to check out the website. It's movement19.org. If you go over there, it's basically a conduit to all of our social media. It is built on WordPress, so we're going to maintain a WordPress blog. I was really hoping to use SteamPress, and I actually didn't realize you have to pay for premium for the top tier in order to be able to use those kind of plugins on WordPress. So I was a little disappointed that I didn't. I only spent the bare bones $99 package, so I can't actually use SteamPress. But that's okay because I'm used to cross posting a lot, and it's just what's one more blog? what's one more blog when you can't make a living blogging? I'm kidding, kinda. So the Solar Tiny Sound is actually underway, and I want to make sure. Matter of fact, let me switch over here to my frame so I can make sure you all can see the little sign that we got to display when we're playing music and vending at events from here forth. This was just something I threw together, just clip art. I'm not gonna tell you that I really truly created this all that much, but it's got the QR code that will take you to the website. And as I said, the website is a conduit to reach out to us on Steemit, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and WordPress, of course. We're also on YouTube right now. We're streaming to YouTube Live, but I'm basically just using YouTube because as a centralized, humongous global server, it really freaking works well. But one day I'm hoping that the decentralized internet will work that well, and I'm sure it will. But
You may have
For-
to stick to the bowl, yeah.
Oh, is that not hitting? Is that not hitting?
We'll be soon.
Oh man, did I not? I've been rolling blunts since I was like 12. What the? What the oh,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, though. Yeah.
no, you're okay. Here you go. Pass it to my wife off camera right there. So anyway, so Solar Tiny Sound is jumping off, and I want to talk to you guys about that just a little bit because we are here with John, and I want to get to talking about all the different things going on with John vibes and catch up from the last time. But basically, the Solar Tiny Sound is as I've been telling y'all, is a portable solar powered sound system for DJs and live musicians that we've put together with some consumer and prosumer components. So it's not something that we've actually built from the ground up. It's something that we spent some time doing research and figuring out how someone could go off grid with enough power to live from day to day. Not necessarily like power an entire 5-bedroom house, but something like a tiny house, living in your car, camping, that sort of thing, your bare bones, charging phones and tablets, and even something like a portable PA system for DJs. We wanted to show that this is something that could be done quite easily using products that are available on the market, not terribly expensive, obviously, not super cheap either, but much more affordable today than in the last couple of decades to go off grid in such a manner. So what the main component that we got is the Renogy Phoenix solar generator, which by itself is a 20-watt solar generator, which will power quite a lot of items. We also got it with the extra 100-watt solar panels, so it charges faster and you can use it all day in bright sunlight without draining the battery, until the sun goes down, obviously. So we put that together with a Mackie free play speaker, actually, which I'll show you real quick. It's a very, very high-end Bluetooth speaker. I want to say it's 100 watts off the top of my head. I could be wrong. It might actually be a little more than 100 watts. The back of the speaker is really cool. Even though it's a Bluetooth speaker and it's quite light and portable, it's actually quite durable. It has an 8-inch woofer, pretty good bass response, and on the back it's built like a PA system. It's got 1/4-inch and XLR inputs. It's got some built-in effects. It's got some preset kind of EQing for vocals. For one of them's labeled DJ, which gives it a little bit of a bass boost, obviously. Really, really cool unit, which the solar generator that we got powers with absolutely no problem whatsoever. At the same time that it will power a laptop and a portable DJ rig nowadays, which we've got the Pioneer controller DDJ SR, which is a little bit of an older unit right now. But see, one of the things that we also want to show is over the years, I've done a lot of talking about sustainability. And I've really been big into like the DIY culture and repair and rebuilding, repurposing things, particularly electronics, which we know very often e-waste, winds up in these huge deposits, mostly in Southeast Asia, where we're like destroying entire plots of, once usable land. And I don't want to get too much into this, but, years ago it was disclosed that, like, for instance, children will go in there and try to salvage some of these electronic components and smelt the metals at home in their cookware. These highly toxic products that are attached to plastic and all kinds of polymers and things, and they'll smelt them at home in their cookware because they can't go out and buy something else to smelt with, and then have to still cook meals for their family and eat out of this, eat food from this with these toxic chemicals, and then of course they sell what they've smelted and try to make a couple bucks. But it's a pretty big issue. And so what I've tried to show over the years, being a DJ, being kind of very tech savvy and into computers, I like to show that it's possible to keep a lot of these components alive for an indefinite period of time. I've been able to refurbish computers myself, iPhones, really simple things that sometimes people don't realize that you could do yourself, even like replacing batteries that you think are not necessarily replaceable. That's another thing that YouTube is actually a great resource for. And, I know that DTube is getting better and better every day. But the internet in general is a great resource to learn DIY culture and rebuilding and repairing and these little things that kind of make our lives sustainable, but still allow us to be consumers and have this kind of comfortable, convenient lifestyle that we're accustomed to in the Western world, or at this point, probably the entire planet, or most of it anyway.
You said the word prosumer. Is that your word?
No. Having spent many years as a DJ and technician in theater and TV and whatnot, prosumer is a word used in retail very often, where something like, for instance, like this Mackie speaker, it isn't necessarily, you're not going to see your everyday consumer walking around with one of these, but you might see somebody that's kind of semi-pro or a bedroom DJ or something like that.
Oh, that's what it means.
Right.
I got it. It's not just the opposite of con.
Right.
It means professional.
Right.
I got
right,
it.
Right. Oh, I see where you were going with it. Of course.
I thought you were like doing some kind of play on words there.
Pro with God. Yeah. Is this going this way? It is, right? To the left.
I think
I mean,
so.
you got to pass the Dutchie to the left, right? Oh, there's a little inchworm in front of me. I wish y'all could see it. Pretty cool. Anyway, so where was I going with that? Oh, prosumer. So prosumer, theoretically, are products that are a little bit better than your regular consumer products. Like, for instance, the Blue mic that we're talking to you on. Blue is a professional company. They make microphones that cost thousands of dollars. They also make microphones that sound as good as those mics, but will run you less than $100. You know, so that's, you wouldn't necessarily see this mic in a multi-million-dollar recording studio, you know, where P. Diddy or J-Lo are going to record, but it can get you that kind of quality, you know, when you're a consumer, when you're doing things for the love.
I dig it, man.
So that's kind of what we want to do with the Solar Tiny Sound is, it's not just about the music. It's not just about it's about showing that there's a way to transition from this kind of on-grid life and reduce your I guess your carbon footprint, if you will, and your bills and things, and still be able to have this consumer lifestyle that in many ways is pretty cool, even if obviously the way the current paradigm is destroying our world. But it's not because we're consumers, it's how we're consumers and what we're consuming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could replace a lot of what we're doing now with sustainable, alternatives.
Yeah, and that's one of my heaviest criticisms, since we're here on Greenhouse Radio Online. That's one of my heaviest criticisms about the cannabis industry, and it's something that I tried to really instill in the industry in Massachusetts when Mary and I were up there helping a friend of ours start a farm up there, a cannabis farm, is like, if here we are changing we're ending the war on drugs, and we're recreating the cannabis industry and the hemp industry. Why don't we now take something that we're all basically starting from the ground up and do it the right way? You know, I'm seeing a lot of awesome products, awesome, the edibles and all these strains out there, but then I'm seeing a lot of companies still using single-use plastic to package them. Listen, drug dealers, there's a lot of other things besides this. There's go on eBay, go on Amazon, go to your local head shops. I bet you can, wholesale boxes of glass containers, even reusable plastic
Don't
containers.
be the dude that rolls your shit up in a piece of notebook paper, though. Don't
Oh,
be that
God,
guy.
no, don't do that. Well, I guess when you have to. But, people freaked out at one point because back when I was still in the game, I wanted to go a little more, eco-friendly. So instead of using little plastic baggies, I bought the little wax paper envelopes. Well, traditionally, you only get heroin in little wax paper envelopes, and it really freaked people out. So I've got this huge box of wax paper envelopes that I never wound up being able to use. I'm like, look, you could throw it in the fire. It biodegrades. But yeah. So anyway, John, vibes. That's it. I feel like that's enough out of me. I didn't talk much about Hip Hop Is Dead, but we're still on the road. We'll be in Brooklyn tomorrow.
It's Grateful Dead with hip hop, right? Did you even say that? Is that like the thing or what?
No, not exactly. This is the way I've been describing Hip Hop Is Dead to people. We are a Grateful Dead cover band that doesn't cover the dead. we play live hip hop and EDM, and people are like, there's a lot. I've gotten like really, I've gotten a great response, but then the really hardcore deadheads are like, that's stupid. Like, and I'm like, you know, you got to really put it into perspective. And like, if you look at some of the imagery that I've been using for the marketing and you know, the idea that, for instance, like I was a hip hop DJ first and foremost, from the time I was a kid. You know, I started DJing when I was 8 years old, and hip hop was my first love. And it was because of hip hop that I went the direction I went and got into the rave scene and everything else I've done in my life. So, you know, people say like hip hop is dead these days, right? You say hip hop and people think of all that shit that's on the radio. That's, you know, it's debatable whether or not some of it's hip hop, but
auto-tune bullshit.
Yeah, but and it has a time and place too. But the idea is that, you know, it's quite the opposite of dead. But there's the Grateful, you know, there's heavy influence from the Grateful Dead, not just musically but culturally.
The Grateful Dead is more than just a band.
Yeah, exactly. So, but even musically, you know, I'm working with live drummers who've toured, you know, and we're all very heavily into psychedelics and very heavily influenced by the hippie cultures and lifestyles, and so that's another way that comes into play, and there's just so much you can do with that marriage.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, I feel like that's enough out of me.
Word.
So John Vibes, you got some big things going on, man. You got a book coming out. I mean, you've already published a number of books now. How many books is this going to be?
This is going to be the fifth one.
Fifth one, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us, I don't even want to say much more, man. I've been talking a lot. Tell us, we've talked about this before, but for the Grow audience and tell us about the book. What's the deal?
Well, it is kind of a memoir, you know. It's about my time in the rave scene as a promoter and, you know, black market, freelance pharmaceutical entrepreneur.
We're going to go back to that. Keep mental note.
And, you know, just some of the experiences that I had. And I mean, I was connected with a lot of pretty interesting situations, just like, you know, God's Basement, and I mean...
Well, first, what's the name of the book?
Paper Squares and Purple Stars, My Life as a Rave Outlaw.
So,
I already got a website up, raveoutlaw.com. I haven't really told anybody about it yet because it's incomplete, but, you know, there is some stuff up there that you can check out, and there's some information about the book there, too.
Word. So, the title real quick. Obviously, you know, I know exactly what that title means to me anyway, but let's break it down. Paper Squares.
Yeah, they're, I mean, hits of acid are typically paper squares.
Lysergic acid diethylamide 25. That's what we're talking about, right?
Indeed, yeah.
And Purple Stars.
Yeah, I mean, that was like our Blue Heisenberg at this club that I used to... work at, that we call Galaxy in the book.
Right.
You know, for legal reasons, that's kind of what I'm keeping it right now. You know, just to be safe, and because I don't want to throw any undue attention on any particular people. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I'm just gonna keep it to the story and just keep the people out of it and the places out of it, kind of. You know. But. Our kind of signature e-pill, they were stars. At first they were pink, and then at another point they were purple, but purple stars had a better ring to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people, the pink ones were the favorite, but generally the stars in general were our signature at that place, which was kind of ironic because, you know, the name of the place and all the themes that we had was all space stuff. You know what I mean?
You know, I didn't always put two and two together with all that until you started doing it. Purple Stars really grabbed me because right around the time I met you was when, you know, the Purple Stars were the shit, and you know, I was up and down the East Coast. You know, I can say this. My case was adjudicated a long time ago. I was distributing quite a quantity of Purple Stars, sprinkling stars all up and down the East Coast rave scene, and at the Galaxy, those, you know, that was one of the things. MDMA, ecstasy, we're talking about ecstasy pills, which is essentially you're supposed to be MDMA. Hopefully you're getting MDMA.
The purple stars were definitely.
Oh, yeah, they were. Yeah, they were. I mean, we were using test kits, and, DanceSafe has been around for a long time, and regardless of how I feel about single-use plastic, they are providing a great service. I just think they can do it a little better. But yeah, MDMA and LSD have a long history in social gatherings, in sort of underground and alternative cultures and lifestyles. But I don't even like calling it that, because really what we're doing is returning to what we once were, as more natural creatures, when we were in touch with nature and we were got along with one another for the most part, and actually hung out.
The archaic revival, as Terence McKenna called it.
Exactly, right. And so psychedelics and all sorts of substances have always had a very important role in society. Even mainstream society that has shunned drugs for a very long time has had their substances, alcohol and cigarettes and food.
Yeah,
in the Western world,
sugar is a drug.
Yeah,
just as caffeine is, and it just alters your consciousness in different ways. And sometimes, there are certain ways that people's consciousness that gets altered, that people in power are more comfortable with than others. You know
right.
what I'm saying? That's why they have a problem with the things that they've had a problem with.
Well, without going too much further into this, because I want to get back to the book and some other things, but I think it's more that the people in the powers that be throughout recent history, what they're uncomfortable with is how some of these substances kind of loosen the chains and not alter perception, but actually allow you to perceive more realistic.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so that's what they've been afraid of all along. That psychedelics would, things like psychedelics, they would lose power. Which I'm not so sure they would lose all of their power. I don't think that psychedelics will just be like the one thing that wakes up the entire planet. I don't think anything will do that at this point.
Well, no, because you got tech bros dosing at Burning Man, and they're still really not any better. Some of them are not. I'm not saying 100% of them are trash, but
Yeah. So back to the book, Paper Squares and Purple Stars. Do you have a release date?
Not a specific date, but I'm hoping for late June, because that's when I'm hoping for the party to be, like the release party.
Right.
But it's pretty much right now I'm in the process of formatting it and doing some final editing. Really my final editing process is putting the book into a text-to-speech thing that a robot that reads to you, because if a robot is reading your stuff to you, it'll catch mistakes that you don't,
Right.
So I keep on listening to it until I don't hear any mistakes anymore.
That's gotta be weird.
Yeah, I've listened to the thing 20 times so far, and I keep on hearing mistakes or things that I want to fix a little bit. So I keep on going back and tweaking things, but that process won't last any longer than a month.
Right.
And right now I'm kind of have all these other things planned too, because I have this other project that's releasing with it that is it's like an app. It's going to be like a video game kind of thing. I can't really say much more about it, but that is going to be released in the same time frame. So that's probably going to be sometime in May. We're hoping that that's going to be released. So that might even be out before the book, but essentially that's just going to be the very first chapter, and it's going to be like a beta version of this episodic story-driven point-and-click, choose-your-own-adventure kind of game.
PlayStation.
I've
played some I recently acquired a PlayStation. I used to be a gamer when I was a kid, and I got one recently. And they have some games like that where you get the first episode for free, and you Batman. There's a Batman game that's really cool like that, and that's exciting, man. That's awesome news.
There's a bunch of stuff blocking that door. She's probably gonna have trouble.
Aha. So, So we're talking this spring, 2019, Paper Squares and Purple Stars, and we're talking about a release party. Now, how much do you want to say about that?
Well, the release party I can't say a whole lot about because I don't know where the venue is yet. Like, I'm trying to work that shit out. I'm dealing with one guy in Baltimore right now that has a space that I like, but you know how things go.
Oh, I know.
So it's all a matter of that, and I am doing kind of a release event thing for the app with the developer at the Michigan Peace and Liberty Festival, about 2 hours outside of Detroit, and that's going to be June 20th or something like that. I'm hoping to do my release party in Baltimore the next week for the book, you know what I mean? But I'm going to have the book for sale online within the next 2 months.
Awesome. Are any ideas as far as lineup and acts for the release party?
Not really. I got a couple ideas, you know what I mean? Pulling on some strings of some people who will do some favors and stuff like that because I'm on a budget.
True.
And because I have to like do the whole game of, all right, work the political angle as far as like who will bring some people in,
right,
and then I gotta have the angle of who can I afford to pay,
right,
you know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of trying to do that calculus.
Then there's also, isn't there a factor of like who really should be on that lineup?
I'm not too worried about that because there's a lot of people who should be on the lineup who like are dicks and who like didn't do me right, like, you know what I mean? So like there are certain people like from that era who just like, yo, like, I'm sorry, but I'm not even trying to be like that, you know, but it's one of them things where
there's some diva DJs out there.
Exactly.
I can tell you from firsthand experience, and I got no qualms about you know, pulling their card and
yeah, and it's like just because they played for me back in the day, you know, and a lot of people played for me back in the day, and they dropped off on supporting the other stuff that I did additionally.
Yeah.
So, you know, people who have kept up with me over the years, people who even might have reached out to me when I was sick even, you know, stuff like that. Because there were a lot of people back then, and this is something that I write about in the book, there were a lot of people who I thought were my friends for a long period of time who just used me for guest list spots, discounted pills, bookings, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then when that stuff wasn't available anymore, you know, them fools were nowhere to be found. And then even worse, them fools like all switched up on me and started like you know, trashing my activism work. So a couple of them, fuck them, you know what I'm saying? But there are a couple people who have kept up with me, who are cool, who I'm thinking about bringing in on that. And the thing that sucks though is there are like 50 of them people, and I probably only have like 7 hours for a lineup.
Right.
So that is a problem. You know, there are only a couple of people that are really being excluded for the reasons I discussed.
Yeah.
But overall, it's going to be a matter of trying to figure out how to get or how to narrow it down from the wide range of awesome people who have stuck with me over the past couple of years.
Word. So because you brought it up, you know, in recent years, you had a little bout with a serious issue and very appropriate platform on which to discuss that. The saving grace, for the most part, was cannabis. You want to talk about it was lymphoma, right?
Yeah, it was lymphoma, and I you know, I mean, I can't give the weed all the credit,
right,
because I tried to do it naturally for 2 years. I tried to like fight that really hard, although I sucked with the diet. I didn't do the diet as good. Like, I tried to do it exclusively with you know, just the supplements and the weed oil and stuff like that we were making at home, which is stupid. But I have an eating disorder, which, you know, I've had for my entire life. And I've been trying to kick that. I tried to kick that through the cancer thing. And, you know, it was still difficult. So I think that if I did go fully with the diet, then I probably would have been able to do it with the chemo. But I had so many complications, and I was totally about to die, and then I went up and did the chemo. But I think one of the reasons why the chemo didn't kill me is definitely the cannabis oil, because that stuff made it so much easier. It was ridiculous. My hair didn't even fall out.
Yeah.
And the doctor was like, "What the hell is going on with this guy?" And I'm like, "I'm eating weed, yo." You know?
Now you were taking RSO, right?
Yeah.
And you were making it at home.
Yeah.
Am I correct in you were remembering that you used the green oil machine?
Yeah, because that's exactly what it's called. It's this device that this dude, like just some independent entrepreneur made. His mom runs the Facebook page that tells everybody what to do with it and stuff, and it really works great. It reclaims all your alcohol and stuff, so you don't have to keep on buying alcohol. It's only like $200 or $300.
Really? So for how long can you reclaim the alcohol?
For a really long time. Like we reused the alcohol a lot of times.
That's pretty sustainable.
And it's like it comes out perfect. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was, we wouldn't have been able to do it without it, because I heard some people were doing it in rice cookers and stuff like that, and that seemed like it was a lot of precision. Like you needed to really know your shit with it. With the green oil machine, you could be an idiot and do it.
Yeah, it's kind of dial in and just and just wait. Yeah. I looked it up after you mentioned it, because as you know, Mary has epilepsy, so we got into using cannabis big time years ago, and we looked into the green oil machine for some serious dosage, which we actually did not get it yet, but we were pretty sold on it. It's about $300, correct?
Yeah,
it's very affordable.
But see, the thing is though, is now the local dispensaries.
If the audience is wondering what we're doing, we're watching the dog, John's dog.
Yeah, exactly. Like she was eating shit earlier. That's why I ran off the thing.
She's a dog.
And then she's right over there now. She's good. Dude, they know if they're watching. They know they've seen me post pictures of my dog like constantly.
Yeah, listen, everybody. If you're not familiar, definitely follow John Vibes on Steemit. It's at John Vibes. I'll tag him in here in the chat again real quick so y'all can copy and paste if you need to. Although
Babos.
There's no space. So obviously on Steemit, there's no space between the John and the Vibes. And you don't have to capitalize, of course, but we all know how to use Steemit. John, are you on? What other platforms are you on? Real quick, let's take a minute for you to plug all your stuff and get some followers.
Facebook.com/JGVibes and Twitter.com/JohnGVibes and Steemit
right
/@JohnVibes. And what else we got? I think
Patreon.
Patreon/John Vibes.
All right.
That is correct.
Yeah, some of the Steemit community is a little touchy when you say the word Patreon after the Facebook purge, and then the the guy's name escapes me now. I guess he dropped an N-word.
Oh yeah, Sargon
right.
of Akkad or whatever.
Right. So that's a little touchy subject around here, but I'm still using Patreon, although they pissed me off a little bit because now I found out that you're not allowed to sell raffles on Patreon. So I've got to go in there and re-edit what I already just edited. So pain in the ass there. But we're going to have the raffle up and running. I'll talk to you real quick while John runs and make sure that Bubbles isn't getting into any trouble over there with my kids. Shout out to my kids. Let's go back. Let me remind you all, Solar, Tiny Sound, and Hip Hop is Dead is currently officially on tour. We ain't got a lot of dates lined up yet, but we're playing all over Asheville. Just check the website and all the social media for all the details. Anyway, here we are. Oh, we're gonna take a little flick real quick.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
We'll do it live.
So anyway, John's back with us here on Hanging with Who.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good,
man.
Greenhouse Radio Online, y'all.
I'm a psycho with my dog.
The book is coming out this spring, 2019. Paper Squares and Purple Stars, LSD and MDMA.
So yeah, I mean, essentially. But the thing is like I had a couple people look through it, and like a lot of people liked it, especially people in the movement, or even people who were curious about it. There were some people who were like, yo, this is just a book full of you doing drugs in here, like, and stuff. And I'm like, yo, it isn't just that.
No, yeah.
You know, but I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean,
The pages aren't dipped in acid, are they?
no,
Oh.
no.
Damn.
But, you know, I mean, it's like, if you're talking about the life of somebody who is in that lifestyle, then you're going to say, oh, we sparked up a blunt and then went and had this conversation.
I mean, look at
or,
Hunter S. Thompson, or
Yeah.
you know, that's the first one that comes to mind. But many writers throughout history. I mean, even writers who didn't necessarily write about drugs, a lot of things that were written about them. For instance, like William S. Burroughs, you know, was shooting heroin and writing great American novels.
So yeah, I mean, I think that that might be a lot of the reason why it was turned down by, you know, 1,000+ agents.
Wow, that many?
Yeah.
Wow. What was the craziest thing somebody said that you could think of right now?
Oh, well, I mean, the thing that sucks about it is they don't give you any valid feedback. They just send you a form letter.
No one says, like, kind of like was kind of shocked enough to say something.
There was a couple people that were like, this seems very interesting, but not for me. Like, there was a lot of that.
That's a very nice way to put it.
There was a lot of that. Yeah.
Wow.
That was pretty much the only response that I got that wasn't a form letter, was somebody saying, this looks really interesting, but not for me.
Wow.
You know?
Now, what about face-to-face? Not publishers, but feedback from real-life people. Like, what was the craziest? Anybody, you know, really, what was the craziest thing somebody said about it? I haven't given you any feedback yet.
Yeah, you haven't. You
Oh,
haven't.
There's a reason for that. You'll get it soon.
You know, the thing is, though, is like, a lot of the people, I mean, it's been positive feedback, but a lot of the people who have given it, like, they're going to be giving me positive feedback, you know? There's a couple people, like I said, that, you know, they...
We're laughing because if you're not following along with the chat, well, it sucks for you.
Yeah, it's just about Stephen King's coke problem, which he did talk about in his...
Is that a problem?
Well... To hear him describe it, dude, his wife had an intervention with him by dumping his trash can, like, out in a room full of people, and it had, like, you know, ripped open baggies and bloody tissues and all sorts of stuff, like, in there.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah,
bloody tissues, I mean, it's...
Apparently, homeboy had it pretty bad. But it is what it is.
Well, if you like coke, the more money you have.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like, who the hell is gonna get rich and not do coke? Like, I mean, that's one of the things that you look forward to doing when you're rich. I mean, in all honesty, like coke isn't the best thing to be doing, but, like, you know.
That depends how pure it is. All right, so the book's coming out, the app, you got an app coming out, and you said the app's coming before the book, essentially.
Probably, but it's only a beta first chapter thing, and it's coming out in episodes anyway.
That's good. That's great promo. That's brilliant, man. That's absolutely.
It wasn't my idea. I got lucky enough to fall into somebody else's plans who has a very you know, able team. A guy reached out to me, but I really can't. That's pretty much all I could say on that. I mean, as far as that, it's going to be an app, and the artwork for the book came from the same team.
Right, which is beautiful, by the way. I love seeing that image. It's great.
That's the same team, and they're really open for me to be doing really heavy material. Like, I mean, the first chapter has me saying hardcore stuff about cops.
Well, it's real life. I mean,
well, you know, if you look at a lot of the stuff that you can download on, you know, on the App Store, it's. I mean, I saw an advertisement, and me and the owner of the game company was talking about this. It was like, be the cop that arrests this person, and it was like the animation was this hot cop chick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like this like dude that she was about to arrest, and it was like insinuating like some pretty messed up stuff, and it's like, do you want to like gamify, you know, being this chick cop raping this dude and it was like advertised on Facebook, sponsored.
Wow.
So that's like the competition that we'll be having.
So
you know what I mean?
So speaking of Facebook, after the great Facebook, the great social media purge, your writing career kind of hit a couple of bumps there, and things got a little hairy for the Free Thought Project and all the other wonderful alternative media outlets out there. So how are things going now?
Things are pretty good. I'm still working with the Free Thought Project, but I'm doing their podcast instead. And I'm writing for Truth Theory and The Mind Unleashed.
Okay.
And yeah, that's going. And also Crypto Globe occasionally, but I'm kind of doing some more stuff behind the scenes for them as opposed to writing for them.
All right. Well, wow, we've covered a lot of ground. Anything else you can think of off the top of your head you got going on besides this good bud?
Shit. Well, pretty much that book is like what I'm really working on hardcore.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, that's the big project right now.
Book, app, release party.
Yeah, that.
The podcast, still blogging, and Free Your Mind conference.
We're working on it, but like, you know, we're not sure if it's going to be in a different city, if it's going to have a different name, you know. We're working things out. You know, it's like there's a lot going on behind the scenes with that that I can't really talk about.
So, some of us are aware. And,
if you know, you know, and it's like something that we're working on, and it's really just a matter of humans being humans, you know what I mean? And
we're
it's
highly
like,
flawed creatures.
I mean, if you look at it, it's very, very difficult to make things happen. So, all right, and when you want to work together, like in any kind of respect, you know, it's difficult.
It is.
But when you have activists, it's 10 times more difficult because
Very
all of us
strong-willed.
are so strong-willed and we're so principled, and we all interpret our principles in various ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there ends up being some discord, you know what I mean?
Yeah, pun intended there.
yeah, exactly.
Word. Oh man, it's been an absolute pleasure hanging out here with you, with the good people of Greenhouse Radio Online and the whole global community, everybody over on Facebook Live and YouTube and Steam It, whoever happens to be checking us out. Definitely thank you so much for your support. Get on over to both of our blogs and hit the upvote button, please. Check out the website and follow the Solar Tiny Sound and Hip Hop is Dead tour, and Paper Squares and Purple Stars due to be released spring 2019, just around the corner.
Awesome. Thank you for the free promo.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Thank you all. Thank you, John. Thank you, Grim. We're gonna say peace and smoke some more weed and go hang out with the kids and the dog and catch this beautiful weather.
Sorry for being distracted, man.
Oh, you're good, man. It's live podcasting. This is what we do. All right, y'all. Yes. Okay. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around and listening to that pre-recorded podcast with the one and only John Vibes at the undisclosed location within the 48 contiguous states, being his backyard. That was cool. That was actually the first time I listened back to it all the way through, and sometimes I worry because I have a lot of loyal listeners and that like probably hear me repeat things over and over again, and I'm like, oh man, at some point everybody's gonna like shut this off. And what I realized was that like there's always something to add, like I may be repeating something, but there's always something else comes up, you know what I mean? So it takes the conversation in different directions each time. So I'm feeling less bad about it now that I've listened to that back in its entirety for the first time. If you're not looking at the chat, Ron Don says he likes John. He's a good dude. John is a great dude, and I can't wait for y'all to read the book. I've had the book in my possession, a rough copy of it, well, more than a rough copy of it, for probably a month and a half, and I feel terrible because I haven't actually made it all the way to the end. But I've been really busy, and I've read enough of it, and I know more or less know the story. I mean, for God's sake, I'm in the last chapter and like the last few pages. So, but still, I'm gonna actually read the whole thing from cover to cover. And I've said this before. I'm working on what is essentially the sequel to this book, which is, if you do know a little bit about the story, if you've been following along, I had stepped in at the Galaxy. We're going to call it the Galaxy when John was on his way out. So there's a whole chunk of story from that point up until about 2012 that John's book actually can't get into. So I'm working on my own book at this point, and which is also going to become a play. Well, it's gonna be in a series actually. So Making Stuff is asked if you can order the book now. No, not yet. As he said in the podcast, the official release date for the book, I'm not sure if he actually has the official release date just yet. The only thing I know that's official is the date for the app and the party, which is June 29th. I know because Hip Hop is Dead is playing. As soon as I know the date, I will be re-steaming his posts, and I will make a post, and I'll be talking about it, and we'll also have John come back on the show. Probably, as a matter of fact, we talked about it, and I think he's going to do another podcast with us on the same week that the app drops, and we'll do a nice little presentation, and everybody will be able to like click a link and go and download the app for free. So that'll be really cool. That's really exciting. But as I was saying, so I'm picking up in my book where his book leaves off, but my book is also technically the third book in a series that I'm writing about my life. And the first, I'm writing as a book, but I'm going to be producing as a Broadway musical. So that's something, that's a huge undertaking that will probably take years to actually complete. And I mean, as a matter of fact, I mean, although I've done some writing, and I mean, it won't really take much because it's the story of my life. I'm really not going to go too far with it until I get like at least $1 million pre-production budget and actually able to put a team together and sit down in a nice room with a big table and be able to actually like get this thing truly produced and in a Broadway theater at some point. But that's in the little bit in the future. Let me see. We've got a little bit of stuff going on in the chat here. Bonnaroo. You know, I've never actually made it to Bonnaroo. Movement 19 the musical. It's not going to be called that. Actually, the title right now is The Life and Times of a Hip Hop Raver Part 1. That'll be the first in the series, which will be the Broadway musical that I'm producing. The second part will be a straight play and a book as well, and it will be called 64 Days because that will be about my experience spending 64 days in a Cuban jail for having overstayed my visa and being physically abused and psychologically tormented and then ultimately deported back to the States. And then the third book is then The Life and Times of a Hip Hop Raver Part 2, and that is the book that picks up where John's leaves off. So got a lot of writing to do, a lot of work cut out for me. But, as I said, I'm looking forward to putting together a really good team, and John's going to help a lot with that. And New York City Ravers hopefully will be on board with a lot of with the production of the Broadway musical. One of the things I've noticed over the years is like Hollywood has made a couple of attempts at like that one like good rave movie. There have been a few really shitty ones, and there's been a couple of good documentaries throughout the 90s, actually. Modulations is a really good one that it's not necessarily a rave documentary. It's a documentary on electronic music, but touches very heavily on the rave scene, and most of the artists in it are, humongous rave DJs and producers. So I definitely urge you to watch Modulations if that's something you're into. It's an excellent, excellent film, and it covers a lot of aspects of electronic music production, including hip-hop and scratching. The only one Hollywood movie that I really, really love, and I'd actually been meaning to go out and get it on DVD, is a movie called Go, which has a pretty dope soundtrack. If you haven't seen Go, it's the only one that like is at least like really done well. It's well written. It's good actors. It's it's actually quite funny and an exciting movie to watch. But it isn't truly about the rave scene. It just happens to take place in, it's about the characters are ravers and everything takes place kind of around a rave that takes place, at the peak of the film. But it isn't essentially a movie about raves. And so that's kind of what I've been aiming to do over the years as a documentarian and filmmaker is I've been slowly but surely putting together a team of people and learning the skills and the knowledge that I need to be able to truly, really produce something. And I think that a Broadway musical is really the right way to go, because, I mean, God, there's so much you can do with, a live orchestra, electronic music, dancing, the light shows, and the graffiti, and the way ravers dress, just like the costumes and the wardrobe. It's just, the way I picture it and the way I can see it happening with a really serious budget, it's going to be a pretty mind-blowing production. The only thing that I could say that maybe is kind of like it, that's on Broadway or has been on Broadway, is actually a Tony Award winning musical called In the Heights, which I saw I think in the first couple of months that it was out, and it won Tony for the best musical, and it was the first Broadway musical to use any kind of hip hop and sampling and breakdancing kind of styles and rapping in a real legit Tony Award winning mainstream Broadway musical. And that was one of the first kind of things that kind of got me to think in that direction. So as I said, there's so much that can be done in a really sick theater with a really good budget when it comes to rave culture and electronic music, and of course there'll be a lot of hip hop influence in there as well. It's called The Life and Times of a Hip Hop Raver. So, and who knows, maybe it'll be the first Steam-funded Tony Award-winning Broadway musical. So Rondon says he figured out why people like electronic music the first time he took MDMA. It's really amazing what psychedelics and stimulants will do when listening to music. MDMA in particular, if you're not aware, actually heightens your sight and your hearing, actually attenuates them and lets you tune into other frequencies and vibrations that you normally can't see when your brain isn't vibrating at that particular frequency. So any kind of music, I mean, yeah, it's always been associated with electronic music because MDMA was made popular, very, very early on in the 80s with, people going out to disco and house clubs back in the day. So it's always been associated with electronic music. But if you've ever been to a Grateful Dead show, you know that it has, more or less the same effect, if not even more. I'm not sure. Maybe Crimmy can tell me how that works in like the heavy metal and grunge scene and punk rock and all that. But industrial, I mean, I know they take substances when they go out to shows too. But my experience is that that's usually more so cocaine and alcohol, and every scene has its shtick when it comes to substances. But I think MDMA and LSD have kind of like really played a part in just about every scene throughout recent history, and you can very often see in a lot of musical groups and cultures and lifestyles where psychedelics have been an influence, particularly when you look back at ancient indigenous cultures. As we know, for instance, Native Americans, I hate even calling them that, but they've used psilocybin and dimethyltryptamine for a very long time, and peyote. And I actually learned in recent years when I was writing a very in-depth paper on peyote that most indigenous tribes in the Americas actually did not even know peyote existed until after the Trail of Tears, when the white man came and pushed them along and sent them out west, and they were of course horribly tortured and enslaved and beaten and killed and had genocide committed against them, and those who survived and made their way to live with other tribes and in reservations out in the West and in the Midwest. That was when they were then introduced to peyote as a form of healing, because of course they needed to go through a shit ton of healing. And although I haven't had experience with peyote, I did take mescaline when I was a kid. It's pretty hard to get your hands on real mescaline nowadays. But you can actually go and experience peyote legally through the Native American Church in just about all the 50 states, although much easier out west in California and Texas and Arizona and Nevada and whatnot. I've actually been invited to take place in a peyote ceremony by a Cheyenne high priestess by the name of Patricia James, who I actually was, it was Alexander Shulgin who put me in touch with her shortly before he passed away. I was emailing with the Shulgins, him and his wife, doing research for the paper that I was writing, and Shulgin admitted he really didn't have much experience with peyote, but he knew someone who did, and he put me on to Patricia James. And she's a lot younger than him. She's still around, and she's still doing her thing, and she said at any time when you make it out west, give me a shout, and bring your whole family along. So that's something I'm looking forward to, hopefully pretty soon. So Rondon says he ran a music festival for 3 years. I didn't know that about you, Rondon. I've been in the festival circuit and at the rave scene on the East Coast for a very long time. So I'm curious what festival. I'd love to know more about that. I absolutely, that's my thing. I love festivals. So I'd be interested to hear more about that. Maybe we'll pirate one night. Anyway, I think we're coming up to the end of the show. I got just a couple of minutes left. I did want to have some talking points I wanted to pull from my private Facebook group, Project Peace, but I'm not going to have time for that. So I'm just going to share it with y'all. Every time I do, I get at least one request for someone to join the group. So there you go. If you're not there, or if you're on Facebook, join us over there. I share. It's the only place on Facebook where I will share all the radical, crazy stuff that I talk about. Because frankly, while I'd love to say the hell with Facebook and post it publicly, I understand that that's probably going to just get me banned, and then what good's that going to do? So I've had this private group for a number of years, and they have not touched it. I'm very careful about who I let in. If you hit me up from Steam It, you'll definitely get in, and there's a lot of cool stuff in there. It's not always something that's going to make you sad or angry. Share some very positive stuff as well. I try to balance it out. And anyway, yeah, so you've been listening to Hangin' with Who. We are on Season 4 right here live on MSPWaves.com, live and worldwide at 6 p.m. Eastern Time each and every Friday. I'll be over in the SMA server on Tuesday, 7 p.m. with Viscosity D&B, all things jungle, drum and bass, dubstep, trap. Thinking about coming back on Wednesdays. Thursdays, you'll catch me over in the Ramble for Pimp Your Post Thursdays at 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. Eastern Time, twice a day. Big shout out to everybody on Greenhouse Radio Online. Big up to Rondon and Krim and all the wonderful MSP crew and staff and Pensive and Globo. I missed you, buddy. I don't know where you've been. I'm trying to catch you one of these days. Making Stuff, thank you so much for coming on, everybody. Definitely follow Making Stuff, especially if you're trying to do your thing and the DIY thing and the off-grid thing and the sustainability thing. This guy is definitely way more well-versed than I am in building and creating, and I'm following along in his footsteps, hopefully. So keep it locked. We got more stuff going on here on MSP. Big up to everybody from Spotlight on the Artist. I'm not sure that there's no show after me, but the Steamix will be playing all music from all Steamians all day long. LP Faust will be on later this evening, and maybe tomorrow I'll come around for Meadows and Makers if I wake up early enough. Peace, y'all.